Yes, good morning, students. Today we are going to start our next chapter, Organism and Population. This chapter comes under the unit ecology. Now, what is ecology? Ecology is a branch of science that study the relationship between organism and its environment, or we can say interrelationship between organism and its their physical and biological environment is known as ecology. There are different level of organization in ecology. Organism at the base, then population, then community, then ecosystem, and then biosphere. Organism is the unit, basic unit of you can say and system. Organism has its own survival, and organism has the capacity to reproduce, and it is the unit of natural selection. Group of organism combine to form population, and group of population or interaction among the population is known as community. And in ecosystem there is the living biotic and abiotic component will be there, and the flow of energy take place, and the flow of nutrients will take place between biotic and abiotic component. Next is biosphere. First, organism form the basic unit of study in the ecology. Species, organism with a similar feature and the capacity to have interbreed are known as the species. Population, it is a group of individual of same species inhabiting in a given area. Biological community is constituted by an assemblage of population of all different species that live in an area and interact with each other. A biotic community has a distinct species composition and structure. Ecosystem, it is the biological system in which the biotic and abiotic component takes under the consideration. Habitat is the place where an organism lives. Next is biome is a very large unit constituting of major vegetation type, associated fauna found in specialized zone. Niche, the ecological niche of an organism represent the range of condition that it can tolerate and resources it utilize and its functional role in ecological system. Means each species has a specific distinct area in which it occupy its space known as niche. No two species occupy the same niche. Next is biosphere. It is the sum total of all biomes on the earth. Next is environment is sum total of biotic and abiotic factor. Temperature, water, light and soil are the component of environment. Next is biome. Large ecosystems are called as biome. Each biome is identified by its climax community, and biomes also has a specific boundary according to altitude and latitude also. And in biome there is variation in the intensity of temperature or variation in the intensity of rainfall from one biome to another biome. As we can see in this graph, there are tropical forest, temperate forest, grassland forest, desert, coniferous, arctic, alpine biomes are there. In tropical forest the rainfall is 150 to 400. In desert the temperature is 5 to 24 annual temperature, and rainfall is below 50. And in arctic area the rainfall is near about 50 to 100. So different biomes have different precipitation range and different temperature range is there. We can see in this table, tundra location and vegetation type is there. Northern coniferous location and vegetation type is given in this slide. We just read this slide once, and these are the name of different grasslands: North America, South America grassland area, Europe and Asia, New Zealand and Africa. Now, factor affecting ecology. There are two main factors that affect the ecology: biotic factor and abiotic factor. Biotic factor has pathogen, parasites, predator and competitor, and abiotic factor contain temperature, water, light and soil. Now, first we start with abiotic factor. First one is temperature. So, temperature for a particular area may be vary according to season, and temperature affect the enzyme activity or affect the BMR, that is basal metabolic rate, and other physiological actions are also regulated by temperature. On the basis of temperature, organisms are classified into two categories: eurythermal, stenothermal. Eurythermal, a few organisms which can tolerate a wide range of temperature are called as eurythermal, and in stenothermal, many organisms which can tolerate narrow range of temperature are called as stenothermal. Next is ectotherm. Cold-blooded animal, endotherm, warm-blooded animals are there. Next, homeostasis. Homeostasis is the process by which an organism maintains the constant internal environment with respect to outside environment. Temperature affects a number of morphological characters in various organisms. There are different rules regarding the adaptation of different animals living in a different area. First is Bergman rule. Bergman rule describes the birds and mammals have a great body size in colder area and less in the warmer area. Allen rule specify animals from colder climate generally have shorter ears and limbs to minimize the heat loss. Jordan rule fishes living in cold water have more vertebrae. Glogger's rules animal of trophic region are more darker in color and heavily pigmented. Rancic rule birds of colder region have narrow wings than the warmer area. Next, thermal stratification in lakes. So there are three layers on the basis of temperature in present in lakes: epilimnion, metalimnion, hypolimnion. Epilimnion is the topmost layer exposed to solar radiation. Metalimnion is the transition zone, maximum temperature change will take place, and basal region is known as hypolimnion and it has low temperature. Now next is soil. Nature and the property of soil depend on the climate weathering process. The process of soil formation by breaking of rocks is called as pedogenesis. The physical and the chemical properties of soil determine the type of plant and animal grown in a particular habitat. According to the different type of soils, the productivity of crops will depend upon that particular soil. There are different type of soils present in ecosystem: sandy soil, clay soil, alluvial soil, black soil, red soil. Next, we can see this. These are the example. Alluvial soil make through water, colluvial soil make through gravity, glacial soil is from ice, and Ionian soil make through wind. So here is given is soil profile. Soil profile is the vertical distribution of soil from the top to the bottom area. The uppermost surface is known as O horizon, then A surface is there, then B subsoil is there, C substratum, and R bedrock is given here. It consists of 5 layers. O layer contain humus content, A layer contain mineral particle, B layer contain big soil particle, and C layer contain weathered rocks, and R layer contain parental rocks. Now soil organic matter. The dead organic matter present in the soil is called as humus, which is formed by decomposition of plant and animal remains. Freshly fallen plants and animal material is called as detritus or litter. Partially decomposed litter is called as duff, and fully decomposed litter is known as humus. So when organic matter, the dead organic matter present in the soil, it is known as humus, and freshly fallen is known as litter. Now decomposition. Decomposition is the breakdown of complex organic matter into simple organic substance, and there are different steps of decomposition. First one is fragmentation. Fragmentation is the breakdown process. Next is leaching, movement of water soluble inorganic nutrient into the soil. Next is catabolism, degradation of detritus into simple organic substance with the help of bacteria and fungal. Next is humification, accumulation of dark color substance known as humus, and last one is mineralization, release of inorganic nutrient. So these are the steps of decomposition: first fragmentation, second leaching, third is catabolism, fourth is humification, and fifth one is mineralization. Next factor is light. It is a complex physical environment factor. Light is important abiotic factor because the autotroph prepare its food by photosynthesis. According to the adaptation, different plants are categorized according to the light requirement. First is sciophytes, small herbaceous plant and some shrubs live under the canopy forest tree and are adapted to photosynthesis under very low light intensity. Animal use the seasonal variation in light intensity and photoperiods as cue for teaming of forage, reproduction and migration. The distribution of red, green and brown algae at the different depth of water depend upon the duration, or you can say the intensity of light. Red algae can live in very deep water. Next is solar constant. Solar radiation before entering the atmosphere carry an energy at a constant rate of 2 kilocalorie, known as solar constant. UV radiation is distinguished into UV radiation C, B and A. C has the wavelength of 100 to 280, B is 280 to 320, and A is having 320 to 400 nanometer. Next, albedo value. The ability of a surface to reflect the incoming radiation is called as albedo value. It is 80% for fresh snow, 20 to 30% for sand, and 5 to 10% for forest. Now, next is water. Important factor influence the life of an organism. The productivity and the distribution depend upon the water, the pH, salinity, and for aquatic organism, chemical composition, temperature of water are important. Euryhalines. Euryhalines are the organisms which can tolerate a wide range of salt concentration. Stanohalines are the organisms which can tolerate the narrow range of salt concentration. Now, these are the different response to abiotic factor given by organism. First one are regulator. Regulators are the organism which can maintain homeostasis by physiological behavior, which will ensure body temperature to be constant. All birds and mammal and a very few lower vertebrates and invertebrates are regulator. For example, human beings maintain their body temperature by sweating in summer and shivering during the winter season. Plants do not have such mechanism to maintain internal temperature. Next is conformers. Majority of animals, nearly all the plants, cannot maintain a constant internal environment, so their body temperature changes with the surrounding temperature. In aquatic animals, the osmotic concentration of body fluid changes with that of surrounding condition. Some species have evolved the ability to regulate, but only over a limited range of environmental condition, beyond which they simply conform. Thermoregulation is the energy expensive process. Heat loss or gain is a function of surface area. Therefore, small animals are not found in polar region. Next is partial regulator. Hair on the body act as a heat insulator. In small organism, the surface area is large as compared to that of volume, but in large animal this ratio is small. So the larger animal effectively control the body temperature. Migration. The organism that can move away temporarily from the stressful condition to the more comfortable condition is known as migration. Next response is suspension. Organism that cannot migrate suspend their metabolic activity during the stressful condition. It is called as suspension. There are three different mode of suspension: hibernation, estivation, and diapause. Hibernation is the winter sleep, and estivation is the summer sleep, and diapause is you can say the suspending the metabolic activity. Yes, hibernation is a process by which the animal avoid the stress and become inactive during winter, like polar bear. Estivation is a process by which animal avoid the stress and the summer relatable problem, become inactive during the summer, example snail and fishes. And diapause is the stage of suspended development seen in many zooplanktons to avoid unfavorable condition. This is a graph of conformer, regulator and partial regulator. We can see regulators maintain their internal level constant despite the change in external level, and conformers changes their internal level condition with respect to external level, and partial regulator changes the internal level with respect to external level up to a certain extent. Next is adaptation. Adaptation is any change of an organism that enable its survival and reproduce in its habitat. Adaptation have over a long period of time evolved genetically and are controlled. Desert plants have different adaptation as compared to hydrophytes. So desert plants have thick cuticle on the leaf surface, sunken stomata. These are the adaptation. Leaf modified into spine, and they have chem metabolism. Example of Opuntia and cactus are the example of desert plant. Aquatic plants means hydrophytes have aerenchyma for buoyancy. This is the adaptation in hydrophytes, and floating leaves are present. In desert animals also show adaptation. Kangaroo rat living in the desert of North America never drink water. The water is set up, or we can say the water requirement is satisfied by the internal fat oxidation. It is also able to concentrate its urine so that the minimum value of water is lost during the excretion. Next is population ecology. First is population attributes. So population is the group of individuals living in a particular area. Population has a certain characteristics or certain attributes that an individual does not have possesses. Important characteristics of population are population density. It is just simple, the number of individual by the number of unit area is known as population density. Next, birth rate, it is the number of birth per thousand individual birth rate. Death rate, it is expressed as the number of death per thousand of individual. Sex ratio, it is the number of female per thousand of male. Next is age pyramid. Age pyramid is developed taking into three parameters in consideration: pre-reproductive area, and post-reproductive age. Pre-reproductive age is 0 to 14 year, reproductive age is 14 to 44 year, and post-reproductive age is 45 to above. If the age distribution is plotted for the population, the resulting structure is called as age pyramid. For human population, the age pyramid show the age distribution of male and female in combined diagram. The shape of pyramid reflect the growth status of population, that is an expanding growing population and stable population and a declining population can be obtained by taking the parameters. We can see in expanding population the number of pre-reproductive individuals are more as compared to reproductive and then post-reproductive. In stable population, the pre-reproductive and the reproductive number of individuals are generally similar, and in declining population the number of pre-reproductive individuals are lesser than that of reproductive. Next is population growth. The population growth depend upon mainly four factors: food available, the weather, and predator pressure and competition. The density of population in a given habitat during a given period changes due to the four basic parameters: the natality, that is birth rate; mortality, that is the death rate; immigration and emigration. Immigration is number of individuals of same species that have come into the habitat from elsewhere, and emigration is the number of individual of population who have left the habitat and gone elsewhere during a given period of time. So the natality and immigration contribute to increase in the size and the density of population. Mortality and immigration contribute to decrease in the population. If n is the population density at time t, then the equation for the population growth is nt is equal to n naught plus birth rate plus immigration minus death plus emigration. So we can see nt is the population density at time t, n naught is population in the beginning, b is birth rate, I is immigration, d is death rate, and e is immigration. We can see natality contribute the population density, immigration also contribute the population density, but mortality and immigration will decrease the population density of that particular area. So there are different population growth models present in an ecosystem: the exponential growth model and the logistic growth model. When the resources are available unlimited in an area, the population grow exponentially, and the equation for exponential growth curve is nt is equal to n naught ert. Nt is population density at time t, n naught is initial density at time 0, r is the intrinsic rate of natural increase, and e is the base of natural logarithm. Exponential growth is just like a J-shaped curve. When the resources are not limiting the growth, any species growth exponentially under unlimited resources condition can reach enormous population density in a short time. Growth is not so realistic. So logistic growth model: a population growing in an habitat with limited resources, that is food and space, show logistic growth. Varhest per logistic growth is described by the following equation: dn by dt is equal to rn bracket k minus n by k, where n is the population density at time t, r is the intrinsic rate of natural increase, and k is the carrying capacity. So logistic growth is generally sigmoid in nature, and in logistic growth the resources are limited. So resources for growth for most animal population are finite and become limiting. So the logistic growth model is more realistic one, and we can see these two different growth curve in single slide. Exponential growth, unrestricted growth is there, and in logistic growth, restricted growth we can see here. S-shaped curve is there, sigmoid shape is there. Now population interaction. Living organisms interact in various ways to form different communities. There are two types of interaction: interspecific and intraspecific. In interspecific interaction, the population of two different species interact with each other, and in intraspecific interaction, the population of two same species will interact. Means if two different species interact, it is known as interspecific. If two different species are interact, then it is known as intraspecific. So interactions are of following type: predation, competition, parasitism, commensalism, amensalism, and mutualism. So First, we start with predation. Predation is the interaction between species involving killing and capturing the prey is called as predation. The species which eat the other is called as predator, and the one consumed is termed as prey. The predator keeps check on the prey population, and the reduction in the predator population may lead to increase in prey population. Predator play an important role in ecosystem. Transfer of energy will take place in this predator prey relationship, and it will keep the prey population under the control. For example, the prickly pear cactus was brought under the control by the introduction of a cactus feeding moth in Australia. Biological pest control methods are also used by predator prey relationship. Example are biological control method to control pests. Carnivorous animals are introduced, and insectivorous plants are also maintain the predator prey relationship. Sometimes prey species have also evolved the defense system to reduce the impact of predation. Certain insect species and frogs have camouflage. Monarch butterfly is very distasteful to its prey bird. It has a special chemical in its body. This chemical is produced during its caterpillar stage by feeding on poisonous weed. The problem of predation is more severe for plants than the animals, as they cannot move. Peoples have developed certain morphological and chemical defense mechanism against herbivores. Next interaction is competition. Competition is the interaction among the individual of same species, or it may be between the different species. That is, intra-specific competition and inter-specific competition will be there. Competition between the individual of same species is for the same resources that are limited. Resources need not to be limiting factor for competition to occur. The feeding efficiency of one species might be reduced due to the interfering of other species. For example, abundant tortoise in Galapagos Island become extinct within a decade after goats were introduced into the island. As goats are great browsing efficiency, so the food will not be available for tortoise, and the tortoise will become extinct. So this is the indirect competition. Unrelated species also compete for same resources. For example, flamingo and fish compete for zooplankton. Competitive release. A species whose distribution is restricted to a small geographical area because of presence of competitively superior species is called as competitive release. We can see if the species is distributed in a particular area and it is not widespread, because a more suitable competitive superior species is present in nearby area, so this is known as competitive release. The species is found to expand its distributional range dramatically when the competing species is experimentally removed. Gauss competitive exclusion principle. It states that two closely related species competing for the same resource cannot exist together. The competitively inferior will be eliminated by the superior. Means if the two closely related species are present in an area, then they cannot exist together. One will this inferior one will be eliminated by the superior one. Next is resource partitioning. It is the procedure by which coexistence of species take place to avoid the competition. According to this, if the two species compete for the same resources, they could avoid competition by choosing different times for feeding or different foraging patterns. Example, MacArthur showed that 5 closely related species of warbles living in the same tree were able to coexist, avoiding competition by having behavioral differences in their hunting activities. Means it's just like partitioning the resources to avoid competition. Next is parasitism. Parasitism is the interspecific interaction where one of the species depend to the other species for food and shelter. Hosts get harmed and parasites get benefited. Parasites are host specific, and parasites and its host tend to co-evolve. Co-evolve, it means that if the host evolve a special mechanism to reject or resist the parasite has to evolve the mechanism to neutralize them. Parasitism also involves shelter in addition to food obtained by the parasite. Parasite may be ectoparasite on the surface, endo inside the body. Dicks and lice. So parasites have different adaptation. Parasites tends to co-evolve. It may lose the sense organ, presence of sucker and hooks, loss of digestive system, high reproductive capacity. Example, Cuscuta growing on shoe flowering plant had lice, humans, Ascaris, Tinea, Plasmodium, causing disease in human. Example of brood parasitism is quail laying its egg in the crow nest. Next interaction is commensalism. It is the interspecific interaction in which one species is benefited and other is neither harmed nor benefited. Means one is benefited and other is nor harmed nor benefited. Example, epiphytes, orchids growing on a tree branch, barnacles growing on the back of whales, and ergot and grazing cattle are the example of commensalism. Ergot always forage close to the cattle are grazing because they easily ingest the insect. The clownfish living along with the sea animal. Clownfish get protection from the predator. Suckerfish on the back of shark. Sea animal on the shell of hermit crab. Next is mutualism. Mutualism is the interspecific interaction in which both the species get benefited. Example, lichen and mycorrhiza. Lichen is the association between fungus and algae. Algae prepare the food which is utilized by fungus and fungus provide the shelter. Next is mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is the association of fungus with the roots of higher plant. Fungi help to absorb nutrient from the rocks and plants provide energy yielding carbohydrate to fungus. So plant depends on the insect for pollination and in return they give them nectar or pollens to eat. This is also the example of mutualism. Animal help the plant in seed dispersal and in return they give fruit for animal as a food. Fig tree and pollinator species of wasp. Fig species can be pollinated by its partner wasp only. Rhizobium in root nodules of legumes. Commensalism, it is the interspecific interaction in which one is harmed and other is neither harmed nor benefited. Example, penicillin secrete chemical penicillin like it will kill the bacteria. We can see these interaction in a table. In predation, species A is benefited and species B is harmed. Competition, both species get harmed. Parasitism, one is benefited, one is harmed. In commensalism, one species A is benefited and other is neutral. Commensalism, one species is harmed and other is neutral. In mutualism, both species get benefited. So this is all about. Thank you.